Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This is Sally Rooney's fourth book. Her first book was Conversations with Friends, Normal People was next, and then Beautiful World, Where Are You? And finally Intermezzo. I think I would group Conversations with Friends and Normal People together, and then Beautiful World, Where Are You? And Intermezzo together as her later books and then her earlier ones, even though in reality they're only a few years apart overall. And it is a dual POV book that follows two brothers. One is the younger brother named Ivan, who is the chess prodigy, which is why this is marketed with a lot of chess stuff. I would say chess is not really in the book for a lot. I think the only place it comes up is like as Ivan's like early passion in life and like really defining his sense of self at a young age, and now he's like, wait, who am I if not just like the chess player, basically, even though he's still trying to play chess. But anyway, Ivan is the younger brother, and then the older brother is Peter, and at this point in their lives, their dad died recently, and it's about the next like few months since that happened. So that's when we followed these two brothers. Each brother has corresponding love interests. In all of her books, they kind of follow some type of love interest. Conversations with Friends and Normal People is pretty much only about that. Whereas Beautiful World, Where Are You? And this one has a little bit more to do with the characters as individuals as well, and it especially follows a group of characters. But each brother has their love interest. For Peter, he has two. He has an ex-girlfriend, Sylvia, who he was really close to and was together with for a long time and is kind of like part of their family now. But she had some type of accident and has some unknown injury that prevents her from being close to him anymore and kind of made her cut off their relationship. They're still in touch. They basically are still dating. They're just not. And then Peter, who is the older brother, he's about in his 30s. I want to say he's 32, but I don't know if that's accurate. Also is seeing this much younger girl who is, I think, the same age as Ivan, 22. And it's kind of a weird dynamic between them in terms of like, he always pays for her stuff and like she gets evicted and he has to help her with her eviction, and all of her friends are young, a lot younger, and he like doesn't introduce her to anybody really, so it's a little bit of that type of dynamic. And then in Ivan's case, he has also an older girlfriend named Margaret who he meets at a chess tournament at a community center, and she's running the community center, and then they have more of an intimately described relationship that forms, and he likes going over to her house and like they like just doing domestic things in the house together, basically. So this book follows mainly the relationship between the brothers, but also their romantic relationship. But that is overall what the book is about. It's written in dual POV, so like every chapter or so it switches. Sometimes you get two in a row, but it switches between Peter's perspective and Ivan's perspective. In Ivan's perspective, you also switch into Margaret sometimes to see like what they're doing and what she's thinking. But you don't get the other girls' POVs. It's just Ivan and Margaret, and then Peter by himself. In terms of the writing style, when we switch in between those chapters, Peter's chapters are written in a really stream of consciousness, kind of scattered way. I think it's written because Peter is feeling very out of control in his life, and so when we're reflecting his thoughts, Rooney writes it in a really like all over the place way. Ivan's is more I guess classically written, like it's written in a regular way. I think it does help us understand Peter's point of view, and like he's really struggling with mental health things, just in general in his life, and is having a really hard time, and you get the sense of that from his chapters. And I think it made the book feel really confusing, and I think it, as a style of writing, I understand why Rooney wanted to do it. I see that it's very tempting to do something a little different and be like, okay, this one's gonna be written like this, because that's how the character thinks, but it makes it harder to read and like just brings down the quality of the writing because she's purposely writing it in a more confusing and worse way. I was a little bit annoyed by it in a way, just because I think with Sally Rooney's books, they're really, really good. Like, she's a really good writer. Maybe Spare Conversations with Friends. I didn't really enjoy that one. But I think sometimes in her books she chooses to do these things to like make them a little bit different and be like, make her characters like a little bit struggling just for this book. And I think that is okay, but she does it in every single book where she'll add something that makes the book itself a little bit worse just to have the characters like be going through something, and then makes it like go more into her literary like persona in a way where it's like, oh, these books are more deep and like more intimate by like bringing down the polish of them. But I think it's a bit annoying at this point because she's such a high quality writer in other ways and like really makes her characters seem like real people and like has some like really good trains of thought in her books and everything, and then just includes these things that make the book worse for like as her little thing. And it's a bit annoying that she's doing that because I think she's a better writer than that and doesn't need to do these things that are a little bit gimmicky for the sake of her writing. Like, I think when she's writing in a normal way in like Ivan's chapters, for example, she still is able to have these really smart sentences, although in this one she has a lot of like bizarrely constructed sentences, and I'm not sure if that's just because she's an Irish writer. For example, Claire Keegan is also an Irish writer, and some of her sentences are written in kind of a turnaround way, especially her dialogue, and I've never been to Ireland, but I'm assuming that's just kind of a dialect type of thing. But she does it a lot in this book, and it's quite confusing to read, and it's like she's doing it just in a way to kind of show off that she's writing that way, and it doesn't feel very necessary. So that is an issue I have with this book. I'm hoping in her next book, or like whatever the next one comes out, she kind of stops doing these tricks and gimmicks in her writing and just lets herself be a good writer. She has a really good sense of emotion in her books and is very talented with her construction and her writing, except when she does stupid things for fun, which I don't love. So that was a main issue I had with this book. I was like, why did you have to write it like this? At least in the first half, there's a lot of sex scenes. I didn't think it needed to happen every single chapter. It was kind of a lot. I was like, oh, okay, again, we're doing this. And they're really intense, and it's like, it's fine, I think, a few times, but it just is the same literary device over and over again throughout the book. And it's quite a long book, so I think some of those could have been cut out, because it's like, oh, okay, here we go again. She's like really going hard on this stuff. So those are some things I didn't love. Like, there's some moments where she just adds in stuff and it's like, you didn't need to have that there. I think my least favorite part of the book was at the very end. She has these really beautiful, amazing moments where they're like at the family home and thinking about what their family means to them and what it can be now that like they have these complicated relationships and their dad's gone, and they're like, okay, how do I have this adult family? I don't understand. Like, someone who kept it all together for us is now gone. Like, what do we do with that? And she has really great reflections and writing on that, and it makes sense for the characters, and it really like pushes them to think in a new way and like develop, and it's awesome. And then she has these 2 pages where Peter is thinking about how he's going to be able to date 2 women at the same time, which is like, okay, I guess the reader, it's a bit annoying that it's like, this character has to do this. Like, he has to end up with these 2 girlfriends. And you're like, okay, I guess. Like, and he's like, well, I'm dating these 2 women, so it makes me like an outcast from society. And like, it's like these people I defend as a lawyer, but it's like, I'm like them now. Like, I understand the oppression of women because I have 2 girlfriends, and that's like frowned upon. And you're like, what the fuck is this point? Like, but it's like the rest of the book at that point is really focused on like the family reforming, and it's like, why am I having this rant from Peter about like having 2 girlfriends? It totally like doesn't match with the good parts of the rest of that, and doesn't add anything, and is just kind of miscellaneous and also bad. So I would delete those 2 pages, but the book is overall 450, so that was a qualm. Okay, things that I liked about the book. I really liked it, I have to say. Some issues I'm like, you didn't need to do these weird things, like, you don't have to anymore, it's okay. But I overall thought it was good. I think she's really talented. I enjoyed how the characters think in this book. There's not a ton of plot happening. It's kind of just these people living their lives, which I didn't actually mind. I think it is fine for this book, but since there's not really any plot, a lot of it is just about these characters thinking about different things and like having conversations with one another and like traveling to different parts of Ireland, basically. I really love how she includes a lot of wide-ranging topics in this that they're thinking about. It's like sometimes Ivan is thinking about his relationship with Margaret, sometimes he's thinking about his relationship with Peter, sometimes he's questioning like different thoughts he's had about feminism and women in the past and like trying to recalculate what he thinks about those. Like, these are very in-depth characters. They're not flat. They have a lot of different thoughts about the world, and I really liked reading about those different thoughts because I don't think you see that a lot in books where characters are genuinely thinking a lot of different things, and real people work that way. You know, you think about a memory you had from like high school or something, and then you think about like, what career do I want to have, and you just flip around a lot. And so I think it's really refreshing and nice to see characters doing that in her book, and makes it seem really real and organic, and like it makes it more interesting for sure. I really loved the family dynamics in this, where it's like they're spiraling and everything's going wrong and all of that, but then they end up like, it kind of like climax of the book happens at the end when they go and like are in the family home and are like, Ivan meets Naomi and he's like, who is this girl I've never heard of, like that my brother's dating, what's happening here? And then Peter and Ivan confront each other, and Peter has to go get comfort from their mom, who talks to them on the phone and is like kind of keeping the boys from fighting in a lot of ways. And it's like they're adding these new people to their family now. Like they add in Margaret from Ivan's side, and Naomi kind of gets brought in there. Sylvia's already there, but it's like now there's a bit of a new dynamic, and so they're reforming their family after this big loss, and that's where the book ends. And I think it ends on a really hopeful note, where it's like, now I have this new sense of family, of people who can be there for me and take care of me and kind of give me a sense of purpose. And Peter figures out how to show up for Ivan and like accept him more as an adult, and all of these different things. So it ends on a really positive note and wraps up the story with, for the most part, not making it too tidy, and resolves these big questions that the characters are thinking about that you don't completely realize they're contemplating until the very end, when things end up working out for the better in their family life. So those are my thoughts on Intermezzo. Somehow, even though I really enjoyed this book, I ended up having a lot of critiques to say. But I would really recommend it. I think because the characters mimic real people, there's a lot of messiness, and so there's a lot to dig into and talk about, especially in I guess a bit of a critical way. But I would recommend it. I would recommend it to people who have really enjoyed Sally Rooney's other books. I would also recommend it to people who did not like her other ones and think she should improve as a writer, because I think Intermezzo is a great improvement, and she matures her themes in a lot of ways and introduces and polishes up a new type of character, and it works well. And I think go into it with an open mind, and I think it will really touch your heart in a lot of different ways. I hope you enjoyed listening to my like 15-minute rant about a book I did like, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. I'll be back again with more book reviews and stuff like that. So bye.